Reactionary populism. That's the name we should be using for this sort of newish right wing that some call Trumpism. Our friend Aaron Rupar, I believe with a guest writer named Noah Berlatsky, has a nice piece on his Substack called Elon Musk's Reactionary Populism. I want to zoom out from Elon Musk a little bit and just kind of give you a foundation to think about this movement, because it's very easy and popular now to say MAGA isn't conservative. Jair Bolsonaro is not a conservative. We're not recognizing traditional conservatism in this new movement. What is it? Reactionary populist, I believe, is something that encapsulates it. Reactionary populism is a political ideology characterized by populist rhetoric and using populist rhetoric for the people, right? That's what we're talking about when we say populist rhetoric. Populist rhetoric to oppose progressive social and progressive political change. So it often will involve rejecting established political institutions, a defense of traditional values and ways of life, but under the rhetoric, because remember, populism is a rhetoric rather than a set of policy ideas, using the rhetoric of populism for your opposition. We're against this trans stuff because of what's best for the average person and the people. The average girl playing sports. The trans stuff is bad for the... So they use populist rhetoric to oppose relatively standard, at this point, quite frankly, progressive political and social change. They focus on nostalgia for a past that may not even have existed. That's an important thing to understand. They refuse to acknowledge and address the challenges that we have today through this nostalgic focus on a past that may or may not have been real. They will resist the progressive social and political change, which can actually hinder progress and hinder social mobility in many cases. They reject established political institutions, which will often lead them to ignore the rule of law. That's sounding pretty familiar when we think about Donald Trump and MAGA Trumpism. They will defend traditional values and ways of life, but not with the traditional conservative rhetoric. They will defend it with populist sounding rhetoric, which can trick people. And this is how some left-wingers fall prey and victim to right-wing populist rhetoric. They will often promote nativist and protectionist policies like around immigration, justifying it by saying this is what's good for the people. And of course, in so doing, they'll harm global trade, they'll destroy alliances with other countries, as we saw under Trump. They will resist globalization generally, they will resist immigration, they will resist social diversity, all using this pseudo-populist rhetoric of what's best for the people. And as we saw during the COVID pandemic, the reactionary populists will often reject evidence and expertise. And that can undermine public policy. It can undermine decision-making. It can undermine the country coming together to actually deal with issues. Perfectly describes what happened thanks to the MAGA right during the COVID pandemic under Donald Trump. The reality, of course, is that while the reactionary populists will use rhetoric that sounds like maybe it's sort of left-wing, it's not, in the sense that this reactionary populist movement is associated with the far-right political movements, extremists, etc. And it will all be under the guise of we are under threat. They will use fear. We are under threat. It's a political ideology rooted in reactionary right-wing conservatism and a nationalist worldview, but it has been sort of passed through a populist rhetoric filter. So examples include Trump, of course, the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, French politician Marine Le Pen, Brazilian former President Jair Bolsonaro. These are leaders whose supporters will often espouse populist-sounding rhetoric, but they oppose progressive political change, they oppose progressive social change, they appeal to a nostalgia that may not exist, and they, at the end of the day, when you get to policy, which you don't always get to with the reactionary populists, they promote nativist policy, protectionist policy, and reactionary policy. I think that's as good a name as any, reactionary populism. Let me know your thoughts. Check out Aaron and Noah's piece, and we'll follow up about this again.
Before you go, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can click the subscribe button below or above or wherever it is on your screen. And if you want to support my work even more strongly, the best way is to get a membership at joinpacman.com and subscribe to the podcast for The David Pakman Show. There you can check out interviews, longer clips, and much more. It's on all the big podcasting platforms. Just search for The David Pakman Show, and all the links are also down below in the video description.